It's so good to be home.
But first, let's show what we were able to see and do in the country of Panama. Okay, let's go.
Let's go.
Now stay tuned to the end of the video because I got a special story about a watch. So we left Playa Coronado, we made our way to Panama City. The reason why we did that is because most tours and excursions are out of Panama City. Now I did look into the cost of a private car to get from one place to the other, but it was going to be like $80 to $100 US. So we looked into public transport. We decided to take the public bus.
And it was great. $7 US a person. About an hour and 15 minutes, air conditioning, curtains if it was too sunny, nice people, even music in the background.
And then it took us to Allbrook Mall, which is the largest mall in Panama City, and that's where all the buses are and taxis and everything. Yeah. So it was super easy to get a taxi to get to the old town.
Yeah, the Casco.
So all in all, it took $22 US for both of us to get from Playa Coronado to Panama City. And here's where the taxi dropped us off at. We just arrived by taxi here to Panama City, and our first stop is the Coca-Cola Cafe.
It's a World Heritage Site.
Yeah.
UNESCO has it marked.
It's actually the oldest cafe in Panama City. In 1875 it started operating. It's the only cafe in the world that has the Coca-Cola name on it and endorsed by Coca-Cola itself.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go find our place we're staying at.
Come on in. Come on in. Welcome to Panama City.
Welcome to our Airbnb in Panama City. It's a nice little place. Probably the nicest Airbnb we've had on this trip. And we even got a balcony. What are we doing in Panama City out here at 5 in the morning? We're going on a tour today. It's now 7 in the morning and we're on the Pan America Highway heading south, but pretty soon we're going to turn east to get off to the San Blas Islands. That's the tour we're taking today. Here's the last pit stop before we start heading east across the mountains. So once we started driving east, the road condition was really good, but it was windy and it was up and down.
Yes.
And it was doing a mountain pass. And
it was beautiful. There was beautiful stuff on either side. These valleys were gorgeous, but it was windy.
Yeah. But if you're susceptible to getting car sick, you probably will.
Yeah. It was windy, we'll just say that.
And the one thing to take note on the drive to get to the San Blas Islands, it's run by the local indigenous people there, so you actually have to bring your passport, and there's a fee of $20 US each to get into that region. Okay, we're here at the port now, and it's time to get on the boat. Ten o'clock and we made it to our first island, so it's time to relax. So the tour of the San Blas Islands was a day-long boat trip where we went to 3 different islands. Actually 2 islands, and one of them was like a sandbar that's quickly becoming an island.
Right. The Kuna people are the ones who manage and run all the tours there so that they can keep the islands in good shape and not get overrun by tourism, because there's not really any nice beaches in Panama City. They're beautiful there.
And they did serve us a great lunch. I think it was either chicken or fish you can choose from. And we got a snack near the end. The only thing I kind of wish is they would have taught us a little bit of the history of the area. But I can easily look that up.
That's right, yeah.
And it was a long way back, But on the road back, we were able to see a sloth in the tree, so we pulled over to take a look at it. And then we finally got back to Panama City. It was about 7 o'clock at night. I think that was 14 hours into the tour. We chose to take a couple of days to walk around the old town.
Casco Viejo. It's beautiful. Yeah. And we were staying so close to it. It was wonderful. We could just walk there and back lots. And man, what a gorgeous place. There's so much history there.
So much history. And they got the museums and the Maritime Museum and the Museum for the Panama Canal.
The architecture is amazing.
You can walk around for hours and discover things there. And then we went down this one road, and it was called Hat Alley.
Hat Alley with one of the oldest hat makers in Panama City.
And then pretty close to that was a chocolate maker.
A chocolate museum.
And boy, was that good.
It was wonderful, yep.
And believe it or not, some of it actually made it home.
And we also tried a very famous coffee. The
Geisha coffee.
Geisha coffee. And I guess it was good. It was good.
It was kind of more like tea than it was coffee.
Okay, Craig.
Well, it's thin like tea, tastes like coffee, but real smooth. Mm-hmm. It's actually very good. Well, when every coffee down here costs $1 or $2, 9 is hefty.
Yeah, it balances out.
Good.
Yeah, that's good. It's one of the more, it's supposed to be a really famous and expensive coffee, so we shared one.
But later on in the evening time, the roads get real narrow because lots of people head into the old town because there are so many restaurants and there's so many good restaurants.
Really good restaurants, lots of rooftop stuff. We ended up on the top of one that was just amazing.
You can't go wrong with the food down there.
It's amazing, yeah.
The next day, we ended up taking a city tour on the hop-on, hop-off bus. We do that in a lot of cities we go to because it's such an easy way to see everything.
You can get around easily.
The architecture around Panama City, they got so many high-rises.
The modern architecture is stunning
incredible.
As well. Yeah.
And we actually got to find the Harley shop. Well, we found it. This is the Harley-Davidson dealership that's the furthest south in North America. Let's go check it out. There we go. Been there, done it, and I got the t-shirt.
One of the really cool things we did was we went out to a very new area of Panama City called the Esplanade, and it's this long park jetty that goes between separate islands and joins it all together. And there's bike and rollerblade paths for the whole distance, and you can rent little scooters and cars and
almost like a Malecon almost.
Yeah, it was very cool, and they had really neat things in every place. On the way there, we saw a very cool building. Which is the Biomuseo, or the Natural History Museum of Panama, and it was designed by a Canadian, Frank Gehry, and I think we got a picture of that.
What are we doing out on the streets of Panama City again at 4:30 in the morning?
4:39.
Vamos a estar dirigiendo. Today we're starting.
Okay, here we go. We're going on a tour of the Panama Canal today. We're just starting out
On the Pacific Ocean.
on the Pacific Ocean first. Okay, now we've got started. It's time to go. But a little bit later, I'm going to tell you a story about this watch. But let's get going through some of the locks first. So here's the Bridge of the Americas. It's actually the Pan America Highway. And this is the first bridge we're going to cross under before we get to the first lock. So what I find pretty cool here is how do they fill the locks with water? Like the second stage and then the first stage there. They actually free drain it from the lake in the middle of the canal because the lake is higher than this. That's why they use fresh water to fill this up. So with this one, there's stage 1, stage 2, and then they leave it filled because there'll be a boat coming the other way, and then they drain it. And it'll drain eventually into the Pacific Ocean. But what they do now for water management is they drain it into a second set of locks over there to save about half the amount of water because they're under restrictions from the drought. But there's no pumps. Everything they do is free draining from the lake to fill all of this up. Here we go, off to the next stage.
On the right-hand side is the dam.
The Panama Canal from sea level up to lake level is actually 85 feet, 26 meters. That's what you have to go up in the 3 sets of locks to the west and the locks to the east to get back down to the Caribbean.
That's right. So we actually went from ocean to ocean that day.
In one day.
Yeah.
Now, a fact that I never knew about before is they use all fresh water for changing the levels in these locks, and all the fresh water ends up in the ocean. Now, why is that? Because the lake is made of all fresh water from the rainwater and all the rivers that feed into the lake. The lake is the highest point on the canal, so they use gravity feed to fill the locks. And all that water ends up going into either the Pacific Ocean or the Caribbean Sea.
That's right.
Now, I kind of thought at first that's a little bit of a waste of fresh water. But the one thing the guide did tell me is remember that all that water from the lake ends up in the ocean anyhow. All they're doing is they're actually just managing the water use and when it gets released.
Yeah, it's very cool.
And one incredible fact is how much water do they use per day? They use in one day the equivalent of what New York City would use in 1 week. Now, the building of the canal, it took them 4 years to build this canal, from 1909 to 1913 when it first started operation. The sad thing about the time it took to build is there was 22,000 people that lost their lives during the construction, and a large amount of them had to do with malaria. Oh boy, it's hot out here. Okay, what's the deal with the watch and the Panama Canal? So I'll tell you a little bit of a story here. So it was always Dad's dream to come see the Panama Canal. Matter of fact, they had a cruise booked one year. The two of them were going to come down here and do exactly this. And then he got ill, so they had to cancel the trip. Dad actually never got down here. And he did pass on a couple years ago, so what we decided to do is come to the Panama Canal. I got his watch on, and he's watching the trip through us right now. So that's part of the deal of why we're here right now. So we're at lock 2 out of 3 to get down from lake level down to the Atlantic Ocean. So it shouldn't be too much longer now, so sure hope you enjoyed that, Dad. There, we've now reached the Caribbean. Today's almost done. The Pacific to the Atlantic in one day. So there's a few of the things we didn't see while we're in Panama. Man, there's so much to see there.
Yeah, it's a beautiful country.
So stay tuned to the next video. Will we retire to Panama?